Hello. So I decided to make this movie to try to dispel some myths I come up with about the GTX, specifically the GTX 33 guitar, and Kaman music in general. I am by no means a music historian, but I do know a bit about this guitar as I bought a GTX 33 with Sustainiac back in 1992. Anyway, moving on. First off, these are made by Kaman Music. Kaman Music is not some junk guitar brand. Uh, Charles Kaman founded Kaman Music back in 1966. He used to make helicopters, as we're seeing in these pictures, and he was a helicopter engineer. He took his knowledge he learned from making helicopters and he moved on to make guitars. One of these guitars you may have heard of is the Ovation guitar. They're very famous in the 80s. They're very great guitars. I own an Ovation as well. He used composite materials to form the bowl on the back of this guitar, and he gets really good stadium music sound as far as acoustic electric goes. And these are well known. Poison used them, Cinderella used them. A lot of bands in the 80s used them. The rock bands, they were really big amongst them. Now, and despite their success in the acoustic electric world with the Ovation guitars, Kaman had issues breaking into the electric guitar world at the time. As we know, the 80s were huge for electric guitars with the Van Halens and all these other virtuosic guitar players. Everybody wanted to be like them. Kind of unfortunate we don't have anybody wants to be like that day. That's kind of the death of music in that sense. But moving through that, they made these GTX brands, as I showed in the pictures, as an advertisement from a magazine. I think some of these might even be celebrities. Celebrity was their first attempt. They made the Celebrity Electric. And the Celebrity Electric didn't sell real well because people were, well, they knew them for acoustics, not for electrics. And they continued on, and after that they tried with the GTX series. The GTX 33 I bought, it was a pink guitar. One of the things people look at these things nowadays and they go, oh wow, they're hot pinks and weird yellow colors and neon colors. This was pretty big in the early 90s. This was really common, that it was kind of a thing. There was a theme with that, and it was what people wanted. And people look at these and they go, oh, they kind of look cheesy and cheap now. It looks like a Barbie guitar almost, I guess. I bought it. I'm not even going to use the comment I made when I bought it because it's probably not YouTube appropriate. However, we will... Now, much of the cheapness, I think, in these come from because they're unusual design. If you look at the headstock on the GTX 33, it looks like it's on backwards, or maybe a left-handed neck was used because they just didn't have what they wanted. That was a design choice. This wasn't some accident made by Kaman Music. This guitar particularly has a Sustainiac in it, and as a GTX 33, this was the top-end guitar. It was $3,000 when I bought it. This was not a cheap guitar. It was sitting in the middle of a music store on a stand at Highland Music in Salt Lake City, right in the middle of the store. And I walked in and went, "Oh my heck, I want this thing." And the guy told me, "Well, it's not for what you want after you listen to me play." I'm like, "No, I want to learn to play like that. I just want the guitar to do it." Anyway, the Sustainiac is a really cool device. It allows it to sustain forever, and it allows it to do some nice harmonic squeals that you might get like a pick harmonic, very similar to that. It also has the Floyd Rose floating tremolo, which I thought was a pain in the butt. In fact, this neck is in really good shape because in the 20 years I've owned it, I don't hardly ever use it. Well, 20 plus, man. I don't use it because it was too big of a pain in the butt to tune. I now have made peace with the Floyd Rose and I actually play it more, but it had some damage to it. So I stripped it down, and in the process of stripping it down, I got to look inside it and see how it was made. Another comment I hear is people say this is a cheap plywood-made guitar. This is not plywood. This appears to be mahogany with a maple veneer laid on it. I'm not sure why. It looks like it might have been extra stock, as you can see. Then they just ground it down, and then I don't know what happened there. It's way rounded. I think maybe it was more harsh. Maybe they just bought stock that way, but it's not a bad guitar. This guitar was very pricey, very expensive. And one of the reasons that got me to buy it was I also knew that it was the last of its line because Kaman had pulled out of making these guitars at the time. I didn't pay $3,000 for this guitar, by the way. A lot of times when you walk into a music store back then, it's kind of harder now with Guitar Center or something, but you'd walk in and you'd go, "Hey, this guitar's $3,000. I don't know." And you'd sit there and kind of mess around with it. "I don't know if I want to pay that much. How about this much money?" And the guy goes, "Yeah, I'll throw in that with it too." And he threw in a Digitech I swear it was a GTX 55 or something. It was a huge device. I can't find them online now. Anyway, he threw that in a case in the end, a hard case, and for $1,500. And I'm like, okay, I'll take it. Sold, and I left. And that's kind of how that goes. But these guitars were not, like I said, it's a very fine guitar. It's one of my favorite guitars to play. It feels good. It has a really good neck. It's just everything about it feels really nice. They're really good to play. It has good sound. I have since taken the pickups out of this, and I've put in just normal Strat because I didn't want to rewire that Sustainiac because it just eats batteries like crazy. It went through 2 9-volt batteries about every hour, and it was kind of a pain in the butt. But it's nice. If you ever want to hear what a Sustainiac really sounds like, listen to Dawkins' Mr. Scary. It was played on a Sustainiac guitar very similar to this. Anyway, this guitar is made in Korea. This is not abnormal. I think a lot of Music Man products will say made in Korea. Ibanez says made in Korea. I have an Ibanez right here that says made in Korea on it. This is a very common place to make music. Tons of music instruments, clarinets, you name it, violins, they come out of Korea. There's music plants there. This is where a lot of them are made. There are everything from just absolute junk stuff that comes out of Korea that you would say was, $100, guitar that you'd find at Walmart, basically down to fine instruments are actually coming out of there. This is a huge music industry, a bit of music industry is built there. And so just saying that something's made in Korea makes it cheap is kind of means that you don't understand the music industry as a whole. Quite a few guitars are. It's just what it is. I also heard someone once in a comment section somewhere say that these Floyd Roses were built under license by patent and therefore they must be cheap. This is a myth as well. Floyd Rose himself never manufactured one of these. They're all made under license. Even the original Floyd Rose I don't think are made directly by him. Floyd Roses, most of them you're going to see are going to say under license or patents pending or something of that nature on them. There are ones that just say Floyd Rose, and they're all about the same. There's not a huge difference in these things. They're not necessarily cheaper. The tuning pegs on these aren't the greatest. They're probably fairly cheap. I don't know. They don't look great. They do the tuning well, and they tune pretty fine. I love them. And overall, this is a good guitar. I would say the Floyd Rose gave me a lot of headaches. They're very hard to tune, but once they tune, they're in tune forever. And they're not that hard to tune if you take some time to learn them. Back when I bought this in the 90s, there wasn't internet. And so figuring this out was talking to a lot of people and going to different guitarists, and everybody scratched their heads, and everybody got sick of it. Everybody complained about the backwards headstock on it because somebody put a left-handed headstock on it. It was an interesting thing to do. So it just sat in my freaking closet most of the time, and every once in a while I'd tune it up and play it, lock it up, and get annoyed with it when I had to redo it. So. But now I've learned the tricks, and it's not that bad to deal with. I wouldn't want 10 of these things in my closet, but they're good guitars. If you get a chance to own a GTX 33, I would take that opportunity. They're a really, really fine instrument. Anyway, thanks for listening, and that's what I've got to say about them.